All right, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 28th, and the time is 6:59 p.m. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Richard Poor. Denise Meyer. Here. Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Carl Huck. Here. Melissa Den. Here. And Tin Stuhlberger, Eliana Henry. I see that she's not here yet. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson and our CFO Jeff Dowd.
All right, please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one one from our October 14th meeting and one from the October 21st meeting. All right, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the October 14th meeting and the October 21st budget meeting. Second. Any other questions or discussion? All approved?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Melissa, has anyone come forward for public comment?
No, Chairman, we did not have anyone step forward tonight.
Great. And now moving on to Pinkerton School highlights with Ellie Henry. You made it.
Yes. Good evening. Here are Pinkerton's highlights for this week. Our girls and boys cross-country teams are both D1 state champions, and they're traveling to the meet of the champions, which is exciting for both of the teams. Pinkerton Academy has officially kicked off National Red Ribbon Week on Thursday with a special assembly stressing the importance of substance use awareness and good choices. This week we held the Sending Town Dinner in the Astro Cath, and that event is hosted by the PA Board of Trustees, which brings Sending Town school boards and members of PA administration together. And lastly, leading up to Halloween, Student Council has come up with fun themes for a week to get spirits up. That's all.
Questions or comments for Ellie? Ellie, do you know off the top of your head who won the MAC plaque this year? Pinkerton? Oh, good. I didn't look it up. I went to soccer games and then I lost track of who actually won. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, moving on down the agenda. First, we have the HMS overnight field trip request for grade 7 with Amy Bernard. Probably. Okay. That would be great. Richard, you can just hand it right to Amy.
Okay, so we had a little bit of mic trouble. So again, for our friends online, we do have some students here to request the overnight field trip for the 7th grade. So here I have Livy Fasisi and William Bedesa.
Accordance with Hampstead School Board Policy IJOA student trips, we request board approval for an overnight field trip for this 2025 through 2026 school year as follows. The 7th grade is going to the Ecology School in Saco, Maine, November 19th through November 21st at a cost of $405 per student.
Ecology School in Saco, Maine is a living and educational overnight field trip that gives students an opportunity to experience outdoor learning during the day and at night. Students explore the forest, fields, and riparian zones alongside the Saco River, learning about New England ecology from the Ecology School educators.
Thank you for your consideration.
The board will need to deliberate and vote.
Perfect. Board members, any questions or discussion for Amy Bernard? Personally, I'll just say I think this is an awesome opportunity, pushing outdoor education and science, and I love the idea. So I will make a motion to approve the overnight field trip for grade 7. Any other questions or discussion? All approved. And now we have an HMS overnight field trip request for grade 8.
Okay, so again, I have some friends with me. So I have 8th graders Colin McCready and Mia Castelletto that are going to tell us a little bit about our DC field trip coming up.
In accordance with Hampstead's board policy, IJOA trips, we request board approval for a night field trip for this 2025-2026 school year as follows.
The 8th grade with permission to go to Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, March 17th, Friday, March 20th. The approximate cost will be $1,100 per student.
The purpose of the trip is to enhance the curriculum and provide enriching, segregated curricular experiences for students consistent with subject content frameworks.
The experience of witnessing democracy in action, along with the Civics Alive, also empowers students with knowledge and firsthand experiences, which foster future civic engagement and citizenship.
The influence of the trip of this nature has provided the potential to significantly impact our student views of their nation and world. The trip will provide an opportunity to witness democracy in action with visits to the White House, Supreme Court, and the United States Capitol building.
Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions for me?
Questions? Okay. I will make a motion to accept the overnight field trip for grade 8. Denise seconded. We'll give her credit. Any other questions or discussion? All approved. I know it's a lot of courage and bravery to get up there, so bravo, John. Now we're moving on to the budgetation. For all the families that are here, you are welcome. I know everyone has times and homework, so don't feel like you need to. Thank you all for coming. All right, so now, again, we have the 2026-2027 school and budget.
Right, good evening. I have the distinct pleasure of kicking off our budget season right here. Kicking off the season is probably the right term because we've been working on it since July. This is really the public's first opportunity to catch a glimpse of the budget. And so again, our process begins in July where we start to formulate what are our priorities, what are our goals, what's our vision for the year. And then we begin looking at what are the resources we're going to need to help to make growth as a school district. In September, when the teachers return from summer break, they work with their building administrators, not just the teachers, but our counselors, our school nurses, our office staff, our custodians, to essentially build what they need in terms of the resources to educate children and to do their jobs effectively. October comes and the principals compile all of that information, and our department heads do as well, into a school department budget. They begin the process of reviewing that budget with a central office, with Mr. Dowd and myself. And once that process is ended, we bring those department and school budgets to the school board for their review. And that happened last week at our budget workshop. And so now we're ready for prime time. Now we're ready to unveil our budget department and school budgets this evening. Now, keep in mind that these are drafts. Essentially what we're doing is we're working to get an overall operating budget, which will come in a future meeting, to the school board. We'll review that, they will scrutinize that, they will ask us to make adjustments and changes, and then ultimately the board will approve a budget. They will then share with the public at the public hearing, and then a budget will be adopted. What you see before you today is certainly far from final. In fact, there's a lot more to be done. As we get closer to a final budget, we get clearer numbers, we make some reductions, sometimes we have to make additions, and ultimately what that does is it leads to a final product. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to run through the department budgets. I would, encourage folks at home. So here's the agenda for tonight. We'll run through each of the budgets, but if we could go to the next slide. What I would encourage folks at home to do right now, you can go online and you can access the presentation that we have here. You can also go through every single one of the department budgets, the granular details here. You can do a real deep dive. We've actually added two documents this year that will help improve transparency, engagement with our residents. That is, there's a form, Google form that is in that budget drive. If you have a question, a comment, you can put it there. You can provide your contact information. You can know how would you like your question answered. We can call you, we can email you, we can add it to a question answer document that we started. But you can also go fill out that form. A document where when we get questions, we received, I think it was like 5 questions last at our budget workshop. Those 5 questions are in that Q&A document. The district has provided answers to those questions. So we'll continue to update that document as the budget season goes on, and that list of 5 will go to dozens and dozens of questions. We want to make sure that voters are truly informed when they head to the polls in March to vote for budget. So if we could advance the slide. So when we're budgeting, this is a lot more than just constructing a lot of numbers and needs and items and staffing. We really have to focus on some strategic priorities, some overarching goals. And so the first goal is to ensure commitment to our values and our priorities, district goals. A school operating budget is the clearest articulation of a school district's vision. It is putting money behind the things you say that you do and the things that you want to do. And, we are always striving for continuous improvement. Every year, we want to be a little bit better than we were the year before. A second is to keep Hampstead's educational facilities in good working order. Both of our schools are a sense of pride throughout the community. They're very well maintained. We have some overcrowding issues in our school, but if you look at how our facilities are maintained, we don't defer maintenance. We have a very robust capital improvement plan. We try to stay up on our maintenance. The school environment contributes in a significant way to the overall performance of our students. And second, ensure robust information technology systems that strengthen our instructional and operational capabilities. We are a one-to-one school system. Every student in our district has a school-issued device. We offer technology that meets the needs of our instructional staff as well as students. We take great care in protecting our students when they're researching on the internet or utilizing devices. And we also go to great lengths to ensure cybersecurity, preventing cyber attacks of our school district. And then finally, and this is something we certainly heard a lot last year, being good financial stewards of the Hampstead taxpayers. We are very cognizant that last year our budget didn't pass and that we had to operate on a default budget. It did not happen often here in Hampstead, but it did happen last year. So when we went into budgets in this year, that was really on the front. That question of how can we advance the instructional program of the school, again, meaning continuous growth, while also good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And a budget that you are about to see tonight does represent both of those interests. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Dowd, who's going to talk some of our budget assumptions.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. So before getting into the budget assumptions, I'd like to read what we're presenting tonight is our expense budget associated with the departments and schools. And the reason we do that is it's a lot easier to break off and try and digest in a way. So we'll start with the expense budget tonight. However, in order to give budget context and to give our budget some relative observation, I'm putting forward tonight some areas that are not expense related under the budget assumptions, so you have an idea of where we're at overall. So the first is overall our salary, FICA, and New Hampshire retirement system increases are about $783,592, which includes absorption of a special HCS special education coordinator on the general fund from a grant that we're not sure we're going to be getting next year. Health insurance increases only $244,703. So our premium increases have gone from 7.61% to 10.84%, with an average increase of 8.39%, which is relatively good from what I'm hearing from other surrounding districts and people who have been issued special assessments through school care. We're with Health Trust, we don't have to worry about those special assessments. I would estimate we've been told that our Pinkerton tuition will increase between 6 and 8%. Running that against our enrollment, our anticipated enrollment, it looks like our total increase is actually negligible. It's about $21,000. The reason for this is that we've had we've budgeted and we've had some withdrawals apparently from Pinkerton, from our district, from our town. So we've had an over budget situation the current year, and so when the rates go up, based on our enrollment, we will actually be paying approximately the same. If the rate comes in lower, we may save some money. Transportation contract increases are between 4% and 5%, but the overall increase I would estimate is going to be at $428,819, largely due to some under budgeting in the previous years. So I will caveat the whole budget presentation with the idea that salaries, insurance, student services, tuition, and transportation budgets are preliminary and are subject to review. The reason being is that some of these budgets have some significant exposure, particularly with student services, tuition, if we have dropouts or students joining our district, as well as transportation based on the needs of the student services department. So we continue to keep an eye and monitor that up until you're ready to finalize the budget, so we have the most current numbers. A little later on, actually starting with Dr. Cheney for Hampstead Central School, you're going to see Dr. Cheney and all of our principals and directors present their budgets, and they're going to give some highlights of some of their major changes. And when you look at those major changes, sometimes they'll tie to a specific line in their department budget. Sometimes they will tie to a specific item in the department budget. So you can't always match them up one-to-one, but I do feel that it'd be helpful for you and for the public to know that. So without further ado, I'll ask Dr. Cheney to present the Hampstead Central School budget for 26-27.
Good evening. The proposed Hampstead Central School budget for the 26-27 school year is $258,684. Our current budget is $243,636, which is an increase for next year of $15,048. On this next slide here, you can see our enrollment. Our enrollment looks to be pretty stable. We're anticipating potentially 4 fewer students. Kindergarten is always really challenging to predict, but as our NESDEC numbers come out, we'll be able to adjust those totals and then get them even better this spring. And then some of the highlights for the HCS budget for 26-27 include an increase of $13,895 in our language arts supplies line. This is really an investment in our MTSS system, which is our multi-tiered systems of support. We're increasing the amount of decodable readers that we have, so that way we can meet readers where they are and help them become proficient. In our elementary ed supply line, you'll see actually a decrease of $1,732, which is due to a slower increase in supplies such as paper and markers. Over the last couple of years, we had seen a significant jump in those lines. For next year, the pricing appears to be pretty stable, and so we're able to realize a bit of a decrease there. In our testing scoring line, there's an increase of $9,397, and that's due primarily to our dyslexia screener having an online administration and the need for training to increase that validity and make sure that the results that we're having are screening the right students so we can put them into our multi-tiered systems of support to give them early intervention. In our elementary ed replacement equipment line, that is up $15,985, and that's due to increasing the replacement cycle for classroom furniture. Next year, we're going to focus on grade 3 desks and chairs for grades 1 and 2. This year's budget was cut significantly in that line, so this is a return to where that line has been. Our library book line is down $5,255, and right now we're in a really good place in the Central School Library, and there's a need for fewer titles for next year. Mrs. Cameron's done a tremendous job keeping up on current literature and what is of high interest to our students, and she's really done a deep dive and has a solid proposal that's actually come in under where she's been in the past. And then finally, as we talked a little bit a minute ago about our MTSS system, there's an increase of $9,294 for a summer literacy program. We've been fortunate to offer a program called Camp Bookworm for the last few years, and we're looking at that and trying to make sure that we're reaching as many readers as possible to help them minimize or eliminate that summer slide and keep the reading going all year long. Now, Ms. Bernard with HMS budget.
Thank you. The HMS budget proposed is $249,052. Our current budget is $223,049, which is a difference of $26,003. Our numbers are going down just a little bit because our 8th grade class is an outlier, very large for the school. So as they graduate, our incoming 5th graders, still a pretty big number, but so we go roughly from almost 360 students to about 350. So pretty similar, but just a little bit less. And then some highlights for us, when you look down this list, you'll see some major equipment replacement. So the first one we had asked for last year is new staging for our musical. So the cost of that is $16,276. That stage is over a decade, maybe 2 decades old. To rent a stage would cost roughly $5,000 at a time. And if we do get this, we can also have our central school use it. So it'll get a lot of really good use over time. We also would like to replace our field hockey nets. These are also over 2 decades old. Our facilities people are actually welding them back together. So really for the safety of our athletes, this is important that we do replace these. So that is a cost of $4,840. Well, you'll see that our athletic transportation, we're asking for $2,000 less, and that's because we have a better estimation of the transportation after running 2 seasons of lacrosse. So we are able to ask for a little bit less there. Our math teachers are asking for a program called Math Reflex. That's roughly $4,000, and that's really to provide a solid foundation in math facts for our 5th and 6th graders as they move forward. We want to continue with our One School, One Book program. In order to do that, we're asking for $2,738 for that. This year's book will be focusing on resilience, so we're really excited to get that started. And the last thing that I just wanted to mention as a big ticket item is replacing some tumble mats in our gym. So 2 of those would cost just under $2,000. The smaller ones, they actually slide, so they can become a safety hazard to the kids. So we want to have some nice big solid ones for them. And that would be the HMS budget. And next we have Melissa McDonald that will talk about student services.
Good evening. Our student services budget proposed going into next year is $6,220,756. Currently, this school year, we're operating on $6,290,834. So a decrease going into next fiscal year of $70,078. To highlight some of our larger number areas, other professional services, there is an increase of $28,477. We are continuing to see a rise in our contracted services for students who are placed in out-of-district schools and or our public charter schools. We are still responsible for ensuring their IEP services are delivered, and some of our contracted prices are rising. There is a decrease in our tuition to private and other schools of $591,151. We have, due to increasing our in-district supports and staffing programs, as well as students who may be aging out, found that there is a decrease in students that are requiring specialized programming and placement. Our Pinkerton tuition line, this is an increase of $236,642. This is for students that are requiring services beyond Pinkerton's general education tuition. And then the specialized transportation increase of $380,881. Again, there are many variables with the increase for this. Some of this is due to an increase in students that are requiring specialized transportation, as well as reimbursement for McKinney-Vento or mileage reimbursement. Sorry, next up is Joe Dion for technology.
Good evening. The technology proposed budget is $396,063 for the proposed. The current budget that we're working off of now is $387,104, with a difference increase of $8,959. To start off with the highlights, we have a decrease of $28,099. That is a complete cycle of Hampstead Central School kindergarten Chromebooks. We completed that this year. And come along with that is a decrease of $2,800 for gumdrop protective Chromebook cases for the kindergarten. We are transitioning from a 5-year to a 1-year agreement to better align with annual budget cycles and provide flexibility for future planning on the wireless infrastructure. That is an increase of $5,654. We also are transitioning from a 5-year to a 1-year agreement on our firewalls. We have 3 appliances, one at the Hampstead Middle School, one at the Hampstead Central School, and one at the SAU office for an increase of $17,950. We also have an increase of $1,539, and that is a password manager, which will be implementing a password manager to strengthen cybersecurity by promoting secure, unique passwords and reducing the risk of credential-related breaches. We also have an increase of $6,233, and that is for both first grade and 5th grade to have brand new Chromebook gumdrop cases. And that would be to basically help minimize device damage, lower repair costs and replacement costs, and promote safe transport of student devices between schools and homes. Next up, we'll have Mr. Jeff Mackey for the facilities budget.
All right, facilities. Proposed budget, $1,137,999. Current, $759,252, with a difference of $378,747. First up, we have the Central School gym calf partition wall replacement at just about $135,000. We are, as we've discussed before, looking at possible other alternatives to suit our needs, but it's a replacement cycle. The current wall cannot be fixed, parts are obsolete, and it's at this point a safety concern. Central School elevator operator upgrade, nearing end of life, obsolete parts again. That one's sitting just over $30,000. Middle school fire panel, field parts, so everything's detectors, door releases, everything beyond the panel. This is our next phase, the 3rd phase in our 4-phase fire system upgrade. That one's sitting at just under $34,000. Central School roof section, we're looking to get done. This is the one that I pushed off from the previous year. It's just end of life, $13,184. We did do, which you won't see on here, we did a roof section this past year there at $34,000. The PFAS tanks, project complete, that was just about $30,000. The HCS fire panel installed, that project's complete at just about $10,000. And the HMS leach bed and road project, that's going to be sitting around $230,000. I know we discussed that one possibly being a warrant article on its own, so that one, we have it noted up there as a project that will most likely happen. And next up, curriculum, Mrs. Tomaselli.
Good evening. The next budget is the curriculum budget. The proposed amount is $279,177. The current allocation is $239,625. This is a difference of $39,552. I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that this is probably a culmination of 4 or 5 different lines that includes all of the professional development for the whole district. So some of the highlights. I have moved strategically the district mentoring program as well as the MyPath intervention licensing into the operating budget. The district mentoring program I started to move over last year. We're a little nervous that Title II might be dissolving from the federal government in the next year. So I've moved the funding for our mentor coordinators, the mentors for our support staff, and the mentors for our professional staff into the operating budget. I just need to remind you that so many of our teachers are now coming to us without the proper licensing, and we really need to support them as they get their credentials in place. So that is a $31,000 expense. Our math instruction, we purchased a 3-year agreement last year for around 81, from the operating budget plus federal grants, it's a decrease of $81,607 in the curriculum line this year. As part of our ongoing curriculum review cycle, we will be looking at social studies next year The standards for social studies have not been updated in quite a long time in the state of New Hampshire, so we will be looking at federal C3 standards as well as some of the new programming the state has put together called Moose on the Loose, which is an exciting program but requires summer professional development. So I've allocated $13,000 for our teachers to be able to participate in that training. Also, you will see a $10,000 allocation for site-wide licensing for AI, as well as professional learning on how to appropriately model and use AI in a school environment. We are looking at several different products. This quote is for one of the higher-end products, but we'll be adjusting it as we see fit. This next slide talks about the Pinkerton enrollment as well as our district enrollment. So if you look at the current enrollment, we have 339 students at Pinkerton in the 4 grades. We are projecting a slight increase of about 30 students next year, so that will be 369 students. We have a very large 8th grade class moving over to be freshmen, and the other numbers are relatively stable through the grades. We have 2 students participating in their HiSET or their ACT programs. And when you compile that with our district enrollment and projected enrollment, we are seeing a slight increase for next year. We're looking at currently 1,172 students across the district, pre-K through 12. Next year we'll have 1,186 students. So the tuition. So we have this next slide, we have our actual tuition versus our projected tuition. It's important to know that this is an estimation. The tuition could increase anywhere from 6 to 8% next year. Jeff is predicting we're going to budget for 8%. Might be a little bit less. Right now we have 339 students at Pinkerton and the tuition is $17,226. That totals $5.8 million in total expense. Next year, we will have 369 students there. The tuition's projected to go up slightly to $18,604, and that total will be $6,864,876. It's important to note that that Pinkerton tuition does not include some services for our special ed students, so that will be reflected in Melissa's student services budget.
And just real quick before we get to the questions, it's always good to talk about what's not in the budget, right? Because there's lots of items and different ideas that never make it to prime time. And so, you know, one of the areas where we're still trying to get firm numbers is around the Pinkerton tuition. It's going to be between 6 and 8, so we budgeted for 8. The Board of Trustees will make will set the final budget at the end of November. That's pretty typical for them. The other area, we did talk about how we are including the special ed coordinator at HCS in the operating budget as right now, the only new staff position currently that's funded in IDEA. We're nervous IDEA is going to end. We also can't just continuously put forward the same activity year after year. You're supposed to build those into your operating budget. But in terms of staffing, there's also, we're taking a close look at support staff. We currently have 2 part-time vacancies for special education, and we also have some students that are in the process of moving out of district that require that support. So we believe that we will be able to take a further look at support staff and make those reductions. Again, our support staff numbers in special ed are driven by data, by what the needs are as articulated in an IEP. So when our needs change, we need to make the appropriate staffing adjustments. And I feel confident about doing that because these are 2 positions that pretty much have been vacant the entire time that I have been here, so for at least 4.5 years. So we're not impacting people's livelihoods. We continue to have conversations each year. Dr. Cheney and her staff really push for a math specialist. It's one of the few elementary schools that doesn't have a math specialist. I didn't think it was prudent. We're trying to bring in a budget that meets the needs of our school district and meets the needs of our taxpayers. And that added expense, I just didn't think it was prudent. I welcome the board's input on that. Last year, you will also notice we put in $100,000 expense for a special education or a van to transport students. It could be used for athletics, it could be used for co-curricular, it could be used for special education. We believe that we would realize cost savings over the life of that van that would more than pay for it, but at this point, we've decided to not include it. And then the other piece that we definitely need the board to weigh in on, whether it's tonight or at the next meeting, is, as Mr. Mackey indicated, the leach field. The administration recommends that get moved to a warrant article and is funded through our capital expense fund. And so that would just be something we'd want direction, because right now it's in the budget, and we'll be able to reduce the operating budget by more than $200,000 if we were to take that item out. So at this time, I'd entertain any questions that the board might have in terms of all the things that you've heard and seen tonight.
With the leach field, if that got separated out as a warrant article and that warrant article fails, what happens in the situation that it fails itself? How do we fix it?
That's a great question, because in New Hampshire, we have a law that says no means no. So when you put forward a warrant article and it fails, you really cannot go the next year and fund that, with the exception of what would be an emergency appropriation. You have to have a septic system, you have to have a roof. So that would certainly qualify based upon some precedent that we've seen in New Hampshire. So what we would have to do is we would have to go into our regular operating budget. So we would roll this and see if we could, if it would last another year. But if it were to fail, which it could fail, and knock on it, we would have to go within the operating budget and be able to find that money, you know, without putting it on the warrant article.
And just kind of about what if scenarios, you know, if we're not moving towards a building addition anytime soon, is that something that we could consider pulling from the capital improvement fund?
Yeah, I would encourage the board to look at a scenario where put the leach field on the warrant, funded through capital reserve, and then there's additional warrant of funding the capital reserve. And what I may recommend the board do is fund the capital reserve at the expense of the septic, plus for inflation as well. So basically, at the end of the day, should the articles pass, we're still gaining some ground with our capital reserve. There could be a scenario where voters choose to approve the funding of the warrant article for the leach field and not the capital reserve, and then we're $200,000 down. But I think we've, you know, with the recent addition that we did, like, we have got on, I think, to a funding mechanism that could be very useful for the board moving forward, that we can fund large capital expenses, whether it's an addition or some other capital expense, and continue to fund the capital reserve to hold that fund at its current level.
For HCS, I don't really have questions. These are just more comments and observations kind of for the public, but personally, I'm happy to see an investment in MTSS, where we have identified that as a priority for the district, especially around reading schools. I'm happy to see money kind of being put towards that through the decodable readers and through the literacy summer program.
And I would just say to that too, Mrs. Tomaselli and I had a chance to meet with Dr. Cheney today, and just to hear her vision for this summer learning program, literacy program, where, you know, in June, we will identify students that are in the yellow and those that are struggling to read at grade level. We identify them all year. And we have made great efforts to engage those students in some type of summer remediation or some type of summer programming. but what was presented today takes it to a whole other level in terms of being data-driven, looking at providing evidence-based interventions that engage parents in the process, provide parents with tools outside of the classroom to be able to, put them in the driver's seat of helping students make progress, incentivizing students' participation in a summer program. And I know that Ms. Tomaselli and Dr. Cheney will come to your meeting as early as November to share the vision for the summer program, because we really thought start with early intervention, our youngest readers, and this is a program we think we could expand. It's very, very exciting, and I actually think it's a model that other school districts will probably catch on to and adopt themselves.
Sorry, question about the central school. The dyslexia screener, the online administration, is that for Acadians? That's something else?
Yes, it is Acadians, and we currently administer the Acadians with the paper version, and we'd be moving to the online version.
Are they mandating it be online, or is it just something like you guys are looking to do?
They are not. We were looking to do that to increase the consistency and the efficiency around the scoring.
And then I think MTSS is important. I don't know that this is the year to put a math specialist on the budget, but that would also help.
Indeed.
Along with the summer bookboard, camp bookboard. Can we fund a math specialist through a grant? Is that still going to be a thing? No? Is that possible? Tell me no.
So, it's an interesting question because, we have not received final confirmation that Title II and Title IV are going away. The conservative approach is to assume that they are, and that's why we budgeted for it. We could go through the process in the next few weeks, next few months before we finalize the budget, before the public hearing. We could get definitive information about Title II and Title IV. I don't think it's a smart way to proceed. So right now, I would say the answer is no. The other trick with a math specialist is you can't fund anything in IDEA unless it is specifically for working with students with disabilities. So a math specialist that worked with the entirety of a population of students that were disabled, you could. But again, right now, we're funding a staff position in that grant. And even if we do receive funding for IDEA, which believe we will receive some, when you put those positions into the grant, it consumes a big portion of the overall expenditure.
So a couple of things. I think your point about two separate warrant articles, one to fund the capital reserve and another to finance the leach field, I think it's really smart. I think that would be my point of view. In terms of the math specialist, I thought about that, between last week and this week, and I do think it is something that we really need to look at as far as an add to the general fund. However, I would not, at least at this point, advocate moving the coordinator position into the LEA from the grant. I think I would like a little bit more information on the value of that role and whether or not it's needed long-term in the district versus a math specialist.
Yeah, we can certainly do that, and we can talk about what data the board might be interested in looking at.
Lastly, for HCS, I just wanted to kind of reiterate, and Dr. Cheney or Bob can confirm this, but Dr. Cheney brought this up about the furniture replacement cycle and how this was reduced in the previous year, and having sat at the table at several of the public budget meetings year after year, these are the things that get slashed when we look to make reductions. So I just wanted to point that out for the public, in that we're either reducing it or we're taking it completely out of the budget year after year after year. So this is kind of getting back on that regular cycle, because these desks and chairs, I've seen it with my own eyes, that they are in need of replacement and repair eventually. So.
And I've said it before, school furniture is very expensive. You can't just buy school furniture from IKEA. I wish we could. You have to ensure that items are fire rated, that they meet certain education specs, and ergonomically suitable. And so it's a big investment compared to what you would buy off of Amazon. And it tends to be an item that we defer often when we're trying to hit a number, right? So last year we had to cut over $700,000. So we try to, do the least amount of harm to instruction. So what happens? It's facilities and supplies. And so year after year, we've been deferring furniture purchases. We need to. We try to repair to the greatest extent that we can, but you get to a point where the furniture just gets so old that, when you think about the overall amount of money we're spending, you don't actually get a lot of furniture for that amount of money.
For HMS on the staging, last, whatever day that was, the 21st, when we had our public budget meeting, there was talk about potential funding sources. Has there been any headway or any update made on any sort of funding towards the stage? Just out of curiosity.
So we have some funds that were saved a while ago when we had a boosters program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of sitting there, and we're looking for what to use that for, right? So we want to use it for something that our students really benefit from.
Absolutely.
And so that would be potentially one area where we could use it, but it would pretty much wipe out that.
Mm-hmm. And how long have those funds been sitting out there?
I think we can get you that information.
Okay.
To be honest, we've been so engrossed with the operating budget that,
Sure.
because those funds reside in student activity accounts. And so right now, and those funds carry over from year to year. We can get you those numbers. That was a question that we had, because you do want to keep money in some of those. You don't want to drain those funds completely. They're there for a reason.
Sure.
And oftentimes it's for unexpected costs. With the musical in previous districts I've been in, we'd have students that couldn't afford to purchase a costume for the musical. Those funds could be used for that. So we just want to make sure it's a prudent decision. We'd like to fund it through the operating budget, because that really is where these items typically reside, but it's not outside the realm of possibility to have boosters fund certain items, whether it's athletic items or even for the play too. So we can get the board. That
Again,
number.
I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of historically, we all know the stage has just been pushed off year after year after year. So even if this could be put towards partial funding, like you said, I think it's a great cause because it serves the full student population.
Yeah, we have to get a new stage this year. This is year 5, at least since I've been here, that we have had this in the budget and it's been taken out. And you saw last spring, we were holding meetings in here and you could see the condition of the stage. I'm not comfortable with another year of using what we have. I don't think the board is either. So I think it's time to act. So it's not a matter of will we do it, it's a matter of how we'll do it.
I do have a question around the math reflex. So I know last year we invested in, Nicole, Ready Math? Ready Math, thank you. I knew I had it right. And Amy or Nicole, can you kind of speak to how Math Reflex will complement or add to this? I could benefit from a little more context here.
So Reflex Math is a separate tool that we use to supplement the teaching of math, multiplication, and division fact fluency. There is a law that says that we have to explicitly teach multiplication, fact fluency in grades 3. So at the Central School, we've already been using this tool for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the teacher movement this year, there was a request, can I have access to that at the middle school? My kids are still struggling in some cases with their fact memorization. And so we put it into the budget. That is something that I could try to put through Title IV as a grant. The challenge, and the reason I asked to have it put into the middle school budget was because the licensing really is not district-wide. It's specific to certain grade level bands. Ready Math does teach multiplication, but it is not a fluency measure the way that Reflex is. So Reflex gives you a very accurate record of where each child is at and which tables they're struggling with. So it's very adaptive and kind of personal. There are other ways to do this that are lesser cost, but this is the preferred option because it keeps track of each kid. So it's a discussion we had at Math PLC for quite a while.
Do you have to,
Go ahead.
do you have to keep paying in order to keep the records for the students?
It's an annual cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does the Fluency Flight work on the Ready Math?
So Fluency Flight is an interesting tool that we just learned about it at the last PD day. So as we unpack Ready Math, that's a question I had is there anything in Ready Math that can do something like this? And Fluency Flight came up. So I will have to get back to you because we're just starting to play with it and learn. I don't know that it keeps track of each kid's proficiency the way that you would in Reflex. But that's certainly an option, and if that's a viable replacement, then we'll go with that.
So what grades have Ready Math now?
5 through 8
5
and
through 8.
algebra.
What does the central school use?
Eureka Squared.
Okay, so they don't have the Ready Math anymore.
They do not have Ready Math, but they do have the iReady Diagnostic. So they still get their iReady Math scores, but we're not using the Curriculum
The
Associates.
MyPath or
Yeah.
whatever, okay.
And you said only some of the students have MyPath, like students that are in the red or the yellow? that
Yeah,
need help?
we've cut back on our licensing for MyPath. It used to be site-wide licensing when we had more grant money, but our Title IV allocation came so late this year that I only purchased a limited number of seats for reading and for math. We do have other ways to differentiate for MTSS and to get kids into groups and target what they need. So we'll be carefully choosing who gets the MyPath seats.
How do you assess, so we have Reflex Frax Math, we have Pebble Go, Pebble Reading, we have Brain Pop, Book Break, Britannic School, and Brain Pop at the middle school. Do we actually look at the stats and how much they use, or are we just asking the teachers, hey, are you guys using this? Because I think
Yeah, they're all in different budgets, so the teachers have to prioritize when they make their budget which software and we call it an info line, info access fee, thank you. They have a budget, so they have to kind of choose. But I am curious about utilization of all of these tools, and we scrutinize for data governance, but we don't necessarily scrutinize for utilization. As we do the curriculum review cycle, though, we look at the tools that we're using to supplement. And some of the tools you mentioned are in our library budgets, so they are school-wide access.
Okay. Yeah, it's like those 6 programs are $15,000, which, I mean, in the total budget's not huge, but I think looking at the efficiency, because sometimes
right.
people feel like they want to use it, but they don't end up using it. So.
That's right. Yep. It's a good point.
If you guys, I have a Joe question and then 2 Jeff questions.
Okay.
Joe, for the benefit for a shorter term contract is flexibility, but does it cost more if we're going on 1-year contracts for the?
So we go out for a bid on those every year, and we typically with those go with the cheapest one that comes in on the RFP. But it would be probably a little bit of savings to go with the 5-year, but overall it's going to be a lot more money up front.
Okay. So yeah, it would be a little savings, but then we're locked in and okay.
Yeah.
I have 2 Jeff questions.
Thank you.
So the first one is, so the oil's 175K, how much like leeway, like how close have we ever gotten to like 175K or?
I'm sure Mr. Dow might be able to help with that a little bit more.
Rates for this year. We don't know where it's going to go next year.
Okay.
And
So we
that's
lock
what
in the rate, but we don't obviously lock in the amount of usage that we're going to need. Okay.
Correct, and we don't put the RFP out until the fall anyways, so well after the fact.
Okay.
So.
And then so the partition, right, versus the leach field, right? The leach field is we don't really know, but we think we need to replace it. Now, when we're talking about the leach field going into a warrant article, are you saying the partition has to go, that's why it's in the main budget, versus the leach field might be able to, we might not have to do?
So my opinion, the leach bed is a definite. We have to get that leach bed done. It is showing physical signs of wet spots, which on a leach bed, that is your first most visible sign. We have it, I had it looked at last year. I had it tested or inspected, and when they dug down, they saw failure happening. It just goes in stages. And again, that one's on borrowed time. It could happen this fall, it could happen in the spring. Last year was very noticeable with all that snow we had and the melt off. Water is supposed to go down. When a septic is failing, water starts to come up.
Okay.
So the wall itself, I had originally had on my my 5-year plan a couple years from now. However, this summer brought to my attention that those parts are obsolete, and they tried to bring in new parts and try to fabricate. They couldn't even do anything. Nothing matched, nothing fit, and that wall is very loose. Even when it's completely closed end to end, it's very loose, and we've had a couple minor incidences of like arms getting pinched in it, and there's really nothing else we can do. So from our end, at least, and I have it maintained every year. They come, they lube everything, they tighten it as the best they can, and
There's
it's
only a
still.
matter of time, yeah.
The problem is we open that wall multiple times a day, day in and day out, and it's original to the building. It's 1985. So, yeah.
So both of them really need to get replaced this year?
Yeah, unfortunately. And the tough thing with my budget is, I've mentioned before at multiple meetings, a lot of my stuff is now ending life because it was done in 85 or 90,
Yeah.
and they only have 20 to 30 to year lifespan, and we've kind of run it out on the fire panel, the septic, roof sections. They're all just unfortunately hitting at the same time. I've done the best I can to kind of start spreading them out, but when I'm seeing roofs leaking heavily or partitions not closing or the
Which
leach
is
bed
going to
now
cost
gone.
more money
Correct,
if you don't
yeah.
do them in the long run.
So we're doing what we can. We're trying to spread it out. That way whoever's in my chair 30 years from now can kind of keep going, year by year instead of all at once, so.
So here's a Bob question then. So if the partition would have to be in the budget because, well, no, I'm just saying like, to get like, if we did a warrant article, lost the partition, we wouldn't be able to put it in the budget. If we put the leach field in, the leach field fails, we would still be able to do the leach field.
Yeah, so you could put the partition on a warrant. I don't, and of course the board could consider that. I don't know that I would recommend that because I would worry about whether or not the legislative body, the voters, would see that as essential. Like we know that we believe it's unsafe, that could result in an injury, and so therefore it's a priority. But if some of our voters saw that on the warrant without being informed enough, it could fail. And then in that case, that would no means no. If we put it in the budget and the budget fails, we have the opportunity, just like we did last April, to go back and recalculate the budget with the default number, which allows us to, even though the default takes certain items out by their dollar value, we can recalculate the default and add that back in. So we could add the curtain back in if it's part of the operating budget, but we couldn't if it were part of the warrant. And I go back to something that I hear Mr. Mackey say often, that putting the leach field on a warrant is a good idea because a lot of our voters are homeowners and they have a leach field and they understand the significant expense, the time, the trouble that goes in when you have a leach field failure. So if we're looking to get our warrant articles passed, I think the leach field is the right way to go. And then the curtain is something we should consider keeping in the operating budget. I did hear Dr. Poor speak last week at the budget workshop about like looking at alternatives rather than a folding wall, looking at a curtain. And I know Mr. Mackey's going to continue to do that, but until such time that we find a viable alternative, we'll keep the folding wall in the operating budget until told to take it out.
I would love to see a folding wall with soundproofing, but that's probably going to be more expensive. Special ed, it's awesome that that's going down. That's not a thing, ever.
And I would just say to your point, I did a little dabbling over the last week since our budget workshop to try to find a school district that has a special education budget that's going down. I did not find one. There's certainly not one in the South Central region. Some of them are doing a better job of like controlling the increase. We have a decrease. And we're not assuming any additional risk, right? Because that's you got to make sure that we're projecting possible unanticipated expenses. We're doing that. And we have a special education budget that is down, and that is the direct result of the leadership that we have in student services, specifically around special education and people that know special education inside and out.
Well, and I think some of it too is consideration of staffing, and ideally if tier 1 instruction is getting better, intervention programs are getting better, then eventually you won't need as many special education staffing on the back end, but that's something that kind of needs to come sooner rather than later, because when you look at the staffing in Hampstead versus the staffing in some other districts, Hampstead is staffed really, really, really well for special education, which I applaud, and I want those kids to have the chance to succeed, but I do think we need to move in the direction where we're not having as many low tier special ed kids and we have more intervention kids and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, Melissa, that's a great job. That's the short version.
Melissa could just really explain quickly for anyone that might be listening at home how charter school special education works. If I live in Hampstead, but my child goes to Wyndham Academy or Seacoast Classical, how do those costs go into our budget?
Yes, of course. So if a student is parentally placed in a public charter school on an IEP or becomes eligible for an IEP while they are attending a charter school, then it is up to the district of liability or district of residence for the services to be delivered. What we're finding is that a lot of our public charter schools are not staffing within their own school. And so we are providing those services. It could be academic support, it could be speech and language services, occupational therapy, any nature of IEP service, as well as paraprofessional support if the needs require. So those services are where you saw a little bit of an increase, although we were fiscally responsible with our contracted services. We also saw a little bit of an increase in that area as well, because not only are we paying for those contracts, but then in consideration also is the mileage, the time for any evaluations that might need to be completed, and then IEP writing, progress reports, meetings, all of the above while these people are out in those schools.
Districts that stopped this year having their own special educator?
They did.
Have we seen an increase from that school specifically?
We have not, actually. Nope.
If we send a kid to a public charter school, we pay for the special education and it goes on our budget, but it doesn't end up on their budget. So their per student cost stays low, but the reality is the per student cost is higher because we're actually paying for special ed. Is that about right?
We are.
Okay.
And I want to make sure I reiterate it's parentally placed. We don't place a child in a charter school. A parent can choose to.
Yep. No, it's the same way that we have a flat cost for Pinkerton and then we pay additional cost for any special ed services we get at Pinkerton above and beyond that flat cost. So while the initial cost looks lower, the total cost is actually higher and more indicative of what public education is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
So board members, around the septic and leach bed, obviously there's been a lot of discussion around this, and at this point, I am curious whether we want to take action on moving forward with putting this to a separate warrant article.
To create a warrant article for the septic?
Yes.
Okay. I would be so inclined. I don't know if we have to vote on it.
I would vote on it.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to give the directive to the superintendent to put the HMS septic leach bed on a separate warrant article.
Or to remove it from the operating
To
budget.
remove it from the operating budget, yes.
Semantics.
Yeah.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All approved. Thank you.
And so as we, in the coming weeks, so the next board meeting, we begin to, there'll be more clarity around the overall operating budget. And again, there's still, some items that need to come into clear focus, the Pinkerton tuition being one. Our goal, and I know Mr. Dowd doesn't, we don't want to throw out firm numbers right now because a lot can change in the next couple of weeks, but I think we're looking at a goal now that we're ensuring that we're making some progress educationally is to attempt to come in with a budget that mirrors inflation, come in around that mark, knowing that, that the school budget increasing by the same amount as everyday cost of items is probably a good starting point for our first run at the full operating budget. So don't hold me to that, but if the board was looking for some idea, it's in that 3%-ish range right now. So
I think something is perspective. If we have 14 more students next year, if there was 14 students were Pinkerton students, that's an additional $260,000 in a budget just for those kids. So like a few kids actually have a significant impact on the overall budget.
yeah, and it's wonderful to nail down a final operating budget as soon as you can, but it is most prudent for us to do it as close to the public hearing as we can, because the closer we get to the actual start of July 1, our new fiscal year, the more accuracy we'll see. So you'll see, there will be different numbers that are presented to you between now and the public hearing, and that's really because our needs change. Special ed is an area, tuition is another area, so just more to come. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll just say how much I appreciate all the principals and department heads' work that into this every year of knowing each line item and being able to justify that as you sat down with us in the public budget meeting. So I know it's a lot of effort. All right, moving on to an update on the community presentation around school funding with Bob Thompson. As soon as he can get his mic on.
Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, so a little bit of a update. I have been in contact with Casey Neal, who works for the Fairness in School Funding Project. They have, so we have a meeting on Thursday, and Andy will attend that as well. And again, we're targeting a date of the first meeting in December to have a 6 o'clock presentation, and that would be on December 9th. So they offer several different presentations, and the presentation that they are doing right now is called Missed Opportunities. Really what it looks at is this last legislative session, what bills were passed into law and their economic impact that they have on school districts, and also even bills did not pass in terms of funding. And so what the consequences of that are and implications are for districts, which could be helpful as to finalize an operating budget. So meeting on Thursday, tentative date on December 9th, and then we'll go from there.
And that December 9th meeting the purpose of it, I'm hoping, would be open to the public, try and get as many attendees as we can to really educate people on the state of education in New Hampshire.
Yeah, and again, it goes to what we talked about at a previous meeting about being more strategic around a communication plan, getting information out about the budget. And I'm also meeting with Missy, Denise, and Bob Hummer from the Town Budget Committee on Thursday. The board, you had the benefit of being that communication plan. That is an adaptation from something that Denise created on the building committee. And so we're going to sort of finalize that on Thursday,
and then start with looking at what activities we want to begin to engage in sooner than later. So it's the presentation in December, but there's also a number of items in December, including short videos and just beginning a public awareness around the budget. And I think the action today of creating the question and answer document, creating a form that allows people to submit questions and feedback is just little actions that we can take that will help to inform the public around the budget.
All right, thanks for that update. Okay, moving on to our policies first read. So board members, in your packet, you have 3 policies. Policy AB is the Parental Bill of Rights. That's a new policy that was established in July that's not on the Hampstead School Board books yet. So it's recommended to adopt that as required by law in response to the passage of the New Hampshire House Bill 10 that was codified in RSA 189B to reserve parental rights of a minor child in a New Hampshire school. Number 2 is AB, the people and their school district. This is reaffirmed, it was reaffirmed in 2010, recommended to revise for purposes of recoding to avoid duplicate coding in the books. And then EBCH around chemical safety and a hygiene plan. And just to highlight some of the items just for the benefit of the public of some of the things that are in the Parental Bill of Rights. For instance, number 4, to enroll his or her minor child in gifted or special education programs if the child qualifies for such programs. Number 10, to be advised of and have the right to opt the minor child out of any non-academic survey or questionnaire. To opt out of any district-level data collection relating to his or her minor child not required by federal or state law. So basically, all of these things that parents in New Hampshire have the right to do for their minor child.
So as a clarification on this, like, this isn't like you asked your class what's your favorite kind of animal. That's not going to fall under a questionnaire, right?
It's a very good question of what constitutes a survey. In fact, it is a question that teachers ask often. And so, typically we would ask them if there's a question about, like what you're talking about is like an interest inventory you give at the beginning of the year. Yeah. In the spirit of that law, so that law is not new to the Parental Bill of Rights. That statute has actually existed for a very long time where you cannot just administer non-academic surveys. And I remember when the law was passed, it really is about asking personal questions to students. A lot of it had to do with health education, political affiliation. So I think, giving a student a questionnaire in the beginning of school about some of their favorite interests would not constitute a survey. I think if there's like aggregate data collection and that collection is being like used for some other purpose outside of instruction in the classroom, that probably falls into the category of survey. But to be honest with you, Dr. Hubbard, it's a great question because it is not 100% black and white.
Yeah, I just don't think, I think sometimes you look at the spirit of it, and if they're asking like, what's better, cats or dogs, and then they write about what's better than cats and dogs, and are you better than cats and dogs, I would say that would not violate this, but.
Where I've seen it become an issue, and I want to clarify, not in Hampstead, but I know in other districts will be around election time. Schools will do like mock elections, and sometimes they may ask like a survey question around like questions that are appearing nationally or at the state level on politics and different things, and whether somebody identifies as a Republican or a Democrat. Some of those mock surveys that students are given would constitute a violation of the survey law, and that we have seen those come up. Not here in Hampstead, but they do.
Yeah, I think like in the course of a discussion within the class, if the student wants to disclose it, I think that's great for discussion, but yeah, I would agree with you and try to avoid that as a questionnaire when it comes to the politics of the student and or the reflection of that might be with the parent.
And I have to say, our leadership team, we went through a training with the attorneys from the New Hampshire School Board Association this summer where we really took a deep dive on the Parental Bill of Rights. And, it is safe to say that the provisions that are in the bill largely are already codified in law. What I think this law does is it sort of puts them in one place, which is helpful for school administration. It's helpful for parents. I think fundamentally, many of these, we believe in parental rights. I'm a parent, and I think that I am best suited to make decisions for my child.
Right.
There is one section of the law that I think needs further clarity, and that is around some language that says, affirms that parents have the right to ask about any and all matters related to their child, and that the school will respond promptly, accurately, truthfully, and completely. Now, generally speaking, I think I have a good sense of what all of those words mean, but when you write them into law, generally what happens is there's a definition section written into the law that defines those terms. Those terms are not defined. So we're going to do our absolute best when we are asked questions from parents, because we already do this, to respond promptly, accurately, truthfully, and completely. But I could see where there may be other school districts that may struggle with defining these terms. And I think that this could be an area where you see, school districts and parents coming into some level of conflict.
Is the policy that we have here in keeping with what most other school districts are doing for our policy?
Yeah, so what we did as a leadership team is we developed a communication protocol that we shared with our teachers that really defines, here are some questions that you as a classroom teacher should speak freely and communicate in a timely manner. These are ones that you may want to consult with the principal on. And then for our principals, these are ones that you may want to consult with the superintendent on. And for the superintendent, that you may want to seek counsel on. And I think that we typically, our communication protocols dictate that we respond to emails within 48 hours, we attempt to. So being able to respond promptly and accurately and truthfully is something that we already strive to do on a daily basis.
And then on the chemical one, when it says chemical hygiene plan, this is talking about like hazmat level stuff, right? It's not, the teachers can still bring in their Clorox wipes and wipe down tables and totally be fine? Well, no, okay.
It may not be recommended, and one of the reasons is that we have all chemical affiliated items listed on our MSDS sheets. So if we spot anything in the classroom, we'll bring it to the attention of a teacher in a walkthrough to make sure that it's on our list.
All right. Well,
Which Mr. Mackey.
There was a fair amount of discussion in the policy meeting before bringing this forward to the board around exactly what you just said of, teachers bring in wipes or bring in scented things all the time, and this policy kind of adds that extra layer of caution around allergies and that type of thing, being conscious of students and teachers and the safety around the things that we bring into school that are quote unquote chemicals.
So better to ask permission than forgiveness?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's another piece, and I'll keep this brief, but just fundamentally speaking, we should not have to have our teachers expending their own money for items related to health and safety, wipes, cleaning supplies. We have an inventory of those items. Tissues is another example. Now, I know oftentimes some people prefer Kleenex to Puffs, and they will ask parents for tissues, and that's not unreasonable. But if they're items that are related to the health and safety of our students and our teachers, we should not be compromising, and we should make sure that we're budgeting for those items, and then we'll have greater control of what comes into our classrooms. I recognize the reality that that's not always the case, but that should be the standard that we always aspire to reach.
Or the rain on the parade for the teachers bringing.
That's okay.
Chemicals in.
Better safe than sorry for the kids. All right, I would like to move to second reading, or make a motion or move to second reading, policy AB, parental bill of rights, AB, the people in their district, and EBCH, teach chemical safety and hygiene.
So moved. Any questions or discussion? All approved? Thank you. All right, moving on to board comments and correspondence. Board members, anything to share? Yeah. That's still up for discussion and up for debate. Personally, after, I know this is, I'm not looking very long-term, but hearing that there was a reduction in special ed this year made me reconsider the potential need for that. I know that's not going to be every year, and we can't depend on a decrease in special ed, but if we're looking at prioritizing certain things over another and considering leach beds and other things that are going to be these big investments, again, I at this point, I'm kind of neutral, because if you were to ask me last year whether this was a good idea, I'd say absolutely yes. And I'm curious about the board members' thoughts on where we think we want to go with this. How fast can you unravel that thing?
I'm not gonna lie, the leach bed thing is making me a little bit more nervous than it was before.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of having a small dollar amount for the special ed trust, at least to start it out. Even if we do a small dollar amount each year and let the voters decide whether they want to approve it or not, but I don't know.
But, so, here's my worry. We just agreed to move the septic to a separate warrant article. Rich also talked about adding to the capital reserve. Are we potentially overdoing it with the amount of articles that are going to show up, of asking for more and more?
So I think that's a concern, but I guess I'm also concerned knowing Title II and IV are going away, that the Federal Department of Education, the Office of Special Education, the workers were furloughed, but now it's not illegal, they can come back. IDEA is possibly under duress.
Who said that? Other than reallocating those offices to Health
They're
and Human
not just
Services.
reallocating. There's no infrastructure in those other offices. There's no staff. There's no training. Like, you can't just pop it over and it's going to happen.
But no one has ever said that IDEA funding is going away.
It's not likely that even if somebody tried to do that, that it was going to get through the courts. IDEA is they have to revoke IDEA.
They've already done away with some parts of IDEA.
Which parts?
D, Section D, which I think legally they were able to do, but it's a part of IDEA that was supposedly not touchable.
Which it's going to end up going to the courts, and it's probably going to end up getting struck down, which is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees, but it's still going to end up, like, courts are going to put injunctions in like they did now.
Are we going to get to a point, though, when we're like stuck waiting for courts to play out and we don't have money?
If we do that, it's not going to be 50,000 or 100,000, and the special ed fund's not going to help. Because how much do we get from IDA? Like 400,000?
380 last year.
Yeah, 380,000. So we're not going to get 380,000 through that. And if it's this year, it's not. The trust will help, but it's not going to. It's still going to be catastrophic to the district. But the thing is, it's also going to be catastrophic to every district. And I think the one thing that people can agree on is that kids that are on special education need special education, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. I would be absolutely shocked. I agree with Rich on that one, that I don't think that's a legit possibility.
Yeah, IDEA and Title I for the most part are the ones that, to me, it's not a huge concern of them going away. But I mean, I do agree with you, Missy. I think we do need to discuss having the reserve. I don't want to forget that because, we're showing a $70,000 decrease in our special ed costs, but in reality, that's the cost of one teacher. One kid moving into the district can vastly change what that is. And I mean, looking at the transportation, I mean, of course, it's not broken down exactly of what was McKinney-Vento last year versus what is, out-of-district special ed transportation, but still, there's a $300,000 increase in that transportation line.
Which is also like 100 taxes, retirement,
Right,
and health insurance.
and benefits
Yeah,
package
so-
and all that, right?
yeah.
So, $70,000, it sounds like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of a school budget, it's actually somewhat insignificant, and especially in special education, because it can go so quickly.
When do we need to do warrant articles by? Is it January or is it December?
December's a better date. Simply because when things come up, if you have a warrant article that you'd like to pursue, but there are questions or changes, it may take a meeting or a cycle or two to get that final warrant article ready to go.
Can I ask a question, just because I'm still trying to New Hampshireize my brain? Putting things onto warrant articles, essentially separated from the general operating budget, gives the voters the power to say what they want to fund and what they do not want to fund.
That's right.
That's correct.
So then it becomes incumbent upon us to ensure, communications people, that we are communicating effectively what each of these warrant articles is for.
That was going to be the next thing that I was going to say is my concern is also if we put it on there, it needs to come with a lot of education and community outreach and context. It can't be this thing that people are surprised to see on the warrant. And I know we finally have a step towards a better communication plan, and I know that's the goal. But as far as priorities go, again, if this is going to end up on the warrant, we need everyone to walk into that room on voting day knowing why it's there and the justification for it being there.
Well, I think it's...
Yeah, and there'd actually be two, you gotta remember, there'd be two warrant articles, possibly. One creating the trust, and the second one funding the trust. And so, the board at some point is gonna have to come to some type of consensus around what to do. And that could be the decision to maybe create it and fund it at $1, or not create it and, revisit the issue next year, or create it and put $300,000 in it. So it's a layered sort of conversation, I think, that starts with the need to establish it, and then the second, which is like how we should go about funding it as well.
This may seem crazy, but do we want to take the step of making the decision to create it, since I think we all agree that it should exist in some form, and maybe we haven't agreed on the dollar amount to put towards it, but long term, we all see the value in it. Where do people stand on that?
I think it would be good for them to draft language, but we also have 3 meetings between now and December to think it through, and yeah.
I just worry about the education piece of it. I know that gives us December to March, essentially, for proper education, but I'm just thinking, like, if we can say we have the fund now, where we're moving towards putting the creation of the fund on the warrant article, then that just moves our education of it along earlier.
I mean, I think the education is going to have to happen in the month before the vote. I don't think us doing it now versus 2 weeks versus 4 weeks from now is going to do much.
I think the preparation, I would agree that there needs to be lots of messaging prior to the vote, but that's why we have this communication committee in place right now, to start sprinkling in the messaging as early as possible. Because we can't just pack it all in the week prior. It's just not enough. And
Well, I mean, right now they have the budget to work on and the leach field to work on, so I think they have plenty on their plate, and we can bring this special ed in later. I think it's worth.
And I'll be
in a
honest, I'm
couple
on the
weeks.
fence about establishing a fund. So I
Really?
know I'm quiet over here, but
Okay.
I'm, still learning, still wanting to see how some things play out in the greater kind of macro landscape before I feel confident in saying, yes, we need to start a fund.
okay, fair enough. Then we'll push it off.
I think we need to, however, I don't know if this is the year to do it, so I'm sort of with Denise.
All right. Okay, board members, anything else to share with the community?
Bob and I had a really nice dinner at Pinkerton with him and I and a whole bunch of other people from the Pinkerton sending towns. Something to look at is Pinkerton's enrollment is going up, which usually is a good thing because that means better cost sharing. But the reason they're going up is us, which means we are a bigger slice of the pie for Pinkerton. So it's not the enrollment for Pinkerton going up is actually not going to help us. It's actually going to work slightly against us because we have a greater percentage of the students that are going to go to Pinkerton. So our cost sharing for Pinkerton is going to go up a bit. And that's just something, like when I was talking about earlier, there's, 16 kids is $210,000. Like we have 30 more going to Pinkerton next year than we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's $500,000 just in Pinkerton tuitions alone, just for the base pay. So there's an increase that's going to be going on there.
Out of curiosity, was there any talk around potentially creating their own busing program?
It came up briefly, and again, the Late Start committee that, Hampstead has been a part of for the last 3 years has really kind of, hit some roadblocks in terms of actually changing the schedule based upon the bus schedules. So now that work has shifted to looking at consolidated busing. I think it's really in its infancy, but the idea would be that we could pick up some potential cost savings, efficiency, if Pinkerton were to have their own buses and it would be, baked into the tuition cost. You think about like our Hampstead students traveling down East Derry Road, they literally can pass Derry students waiting at the bus stop. Well, we could pick those students up. And there's some opportunity for some efficiency. And then if Pinkerton were to run their own buses, they don't have to start at 7:15. They can start anytime they wanted because it won't impact us because we're not responsible for the 3 tiers of busing that we have right now.
I think something that did come up was, again, pushing for special ed programming at Pinkerton. Bob, and actually another member of one of the school boards there was really pushing it again, and hopefully that will get traction and they can move in that direction, especially since they have an assistant dean for special ed, because the whatever 1.5 million we're spending on transportation alone is, if they're going 12 minutes to Derry, they're not on the bus, they're not cranky, so hopefully Pinkerton will start listening to that, and I think
They're not going to Bedford then for
correct, or Haverhill, or yeah, it will still, the placement will still be expensive, but the transportation will be less, and it's just better for the kids. It just makes more sense. It's cost effective and it's better for the kids. Like for me, it's a no-brainer. So hopefully, the next sending town meeting we'll push it again, and hopefully eventually we'll get more traction. They do have one program that they've brought in, but there's room for more.
Okay. Moving on to the personnel report.
So I don't have anything for the personnel report, but moving into the superintendent report, I'd like to have Dr. Cheney come up and talk about the mural project at the Central School.
So the community art project at the Central School is underway at HCS, and tonight was actually our second community event. This project comes from the HCS Memorial Committee that has come to speak to the board in late summer. And this honors Mr. Torelli and will bring color, joy, and connection to all participants. Participants are invited to paint a heart on the wall to be part of this community art project. And many of the hearts, some of them are colorful, some of them are detailed and meaningful with a connection that they had with Mr. Torelli, and some of them just celebrate Hampstead or the central school. We do have a couple more events coming up. Our next one will be on November 9th. These have been incredibly popular, and we're actually going to need to add some more dates to ensure that any member of our community interested in participating has an opportunity to do so. So look for future communications regarding upcoming opportunities, and we are looking for both painters and volunteers to support the project. But it's been just such a lovely opportunity for our community to come together and to celebrate and create art and make something really beautiful. So, any questions?
No questions. I brought my family tonight and just had so much fun painting the wall, and it just, the whole vibe was just a big celebration. There was the Grateful Dead playing. It was super colorful. Everyone's smiling. The volunteers were great. Student volunteers, literally 5th grade students helping my son gather his paints and his materials. It was just so awesome, and certainly something I think Mr. T would really be honored by.
Thank you.
Sorry. You may recall from our goal presentation early in the year that one of our goals is to enhance systematic MTSS A and B systems in our school. And so we've solicited the help of the Department of Education. We're part of a cohort group that is participating in training and work sessions. Myself and Nicole and Melissa and our teachers, many of our teachers have been engaged in this work. It's very exciting, and I thought I would just have Nicole come up real quickly and kind of just share some of the progress that we're making as we look to put a fully functional plan in place.
Thank you. So the Department of Ed offered a kind of framework training this fall for schools. We were very quick to apply for the, I don't want to say a grant, but for the free training, and we sent a team. So we attended our first virtual training October 1st, and the Tier 1 session, everyone attended on October 16th up at the Department of Ed. There's now a Tier 2/Tier 3 session happening November 3rd. But basically, this is a community of practice around MTSSB, which stands for behavior. So we're learning from each other and from the Office of Student Educator Wellness about best practices in the state. I think one of the most kind of impactful exercises we did was we had to inventory all of the things we do for MTSSB and then organize and try to identify whether it's a Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 kind of intervention, and then assess to what level of fidelity we do that program throughout the school. That exercise yielded 56 different initiatives that touch on either SEL or MTSSB in some fashion. So it was very clear early on that we're doing a lot, but as Bob, tells us frequently, we have to get it in writing. We have to document these systems, both internally for ourselves so that all of our staff are aware of all of the options for interventions for children, and also for the community to be aware of all of the different kind of ways that we intervene when we see things that aren't expected or aren't on grade level. So we're kind of in the process of whittling that list down into the most essential pieces, and then really trying to quantify whether they're fully in place, somewhat in place, or hardly in place, and then identify next steps to get it really pervasively implemented and tight. And so that's the work ahead of us. But it's wonderful to be part of a community practice. People all around the state are in very similar situations. But I think, honestly, we have a lot more support and support from the community as well. So branching out to community partners is a big piece of this, and family engagement is also a big piece of this. So it's exciting that our goal matches up, beautifully with this framework training for our staff.
So I think this is awesome. Again, it all ties into that whole kind of effort towards improving MTSS. What are we doing around data tracking? Because my hope is that we're investing in this from a financial perspective through the budget. You're going to these conferences and courses and bringing information back to your staff. And I would hope that tracking the data goes beyond just iReady scores and that type of thing.
Oh, yes, definitely. So for B, there's a lot of different data points that are, we have to be careful with the non-academic surveys law, but there are multiple data points that we are already in control of in the buildings. For example, attendance, nurse's office visits, tardies, things like our MTSSB plugin and behavior. That's a little bit reactive to do those behavior, but we're trying to get ahead of it. In the middle school, they have one trusted adult surveys that they do with children. So there's a lot of ways we can kind of pull together the things that we're already doing. The central school has a really great book vending machine that's considered a positive behavior intervention system, but we don't really track, we don't track the gold coins and who's gotten them and what they got them for, but we could start doing that. So this framework is helping us kind of draw attention to those types of details and finding ways to either quantify it or just have some kind of measure of the success of the programs that we're already doing. So having the data will be very helpful to know, so that we're making sure kids don't slip through the cracks.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say this to just add busy work to anyone's plate, because I know it is extra work to track PBIS systems, but I think it is worth it, just in the, I guess, from the sense of, is this thing working or not?
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, we do a lot of recognition around here of students when they do a good job, but I don't know that we formally collect that data and quantify it into different categories. And that would be easy enough to do. We just have to build the system for it. But,
And I would say too, one of my big takeaways from the training that we're engaged in is, there's the data that you're talking about, Andy, is really like student data, right? Looking, monitoring data, taking baseline data, looking for growth. They really strongly emphasize, in addition to that, like program evaluation data. Like, how effective is advisory? Yeah. How effective is morning meeting? We run homework level. How effective is that as an academic intervention?
Yes.
And so we do a ton. Like, there's no shortage of amazing things that we do for children in this building. You all know it, right? And there's a lot of energy that goes into many amazing things. Well, like, where's the data to support the highly leveraged amazing things and the amazing things we do that might be less effective? And I think that that's something that we really need to dive into. And they kept asking during this training when, we talked about all the programs, well, how do you know it's effective? What data do you have to support its effectiveness? So that to us is a little bit of a new frontier. I don't think we've done enough of that.
And you could tie that into the budget aspect as well, of there's stipends associated with some initiatives and things like that, and if they're not effective, then why have them? And again, I'm not looking to reduce stipends or reduce compensation on teachers, but we are subject to our constituents and their feedback and their opinions, and to put forward a tight budget. So it would just also assist, I guess, in that. In, are we being as efficient as possible in rolling out programs that actually work?
I would agree.
I'm all for that, and I'm a big data guy. The problem is there's just so many moving pieces, and you're talking about really advanced qualitative or quantitative metrics to try to isolate what works and what doesn't, and it's going to be hard to do that. And I don't know if that's the most efficient use of time versus teaching what are cool PBIS things to do. Teaching, like, there's research-based things I'd rather have them teaching more cool ways of PBAS than doing advanced data analytics for something that's kind of a proven.
No, and I'm not advocating for that. I'm more kind of just, I guess, supporting the mindset that Bob just said of, okay, have a work club. Have we tracked attendance or anything that would measure?
If a kid
whether
attends, are the grades going up? Or are they coming out of the yellow or the red? That does make sense, yeah. There's more simplistic versions of it that would work.
Yeah, well, and I think, I've always been a big fan. I don't particularly care for the word data so much as I do evidence, because I think when we look at it in terms of evidence, we can bring in some of those anecdotal pieces. So like, I'm not trying to pick on advisory or morning meeting, but like, let's ask our teachers. And like, okay, we may not be able to provide a survey to our students, but we certainly can ask our students about the effectiveness of it, because it's not a secret. Like, we value advisory and morning meeting, but there's some of our staff that think that there are other more valuable uses of that time. And so I think we, be careful about making assumptions about how we view these, get the data. It can be done informally, it can be done through surveys. So there is ways to get at it without it being cumbersome or putting more demands on our teachers. But it's definitely, this is, we've been working on MTSS, this is year 4. And every year I think we've made some progress. The progress oftentimes feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. This seems like this sustained thing that at the end of the year we'll be able to hand to the board, and the leadership team has heard me say this over and over again. The product will be something front and center on our website, where the board, the staff, students, community can go on there and say, okay, my child is struggling with academics, my child is struggling with behaviors, like, how does it work for my kid to get the help that they need? And we'll be able to go through a very, very clearly defined, memorialized process. Like, that will be on you will have that as a deliverable at the end of the year. And that is, I think, the piece that just needs to finally be in place. We are doing MTSS. And I've been convinced of it more than ever after the 2 sessions I've spent with our staff. We're doing it. It just looks different in each building. It is still in many ways very developmentally appropriate for the grade level. It looks different in each building. And if I were to ask, show me the clearly written plan that has all of the elements, there's bits and pieces over here and bits and pieces over here, but it's not all together in one district plan. And that is the purpose of the work that we're doing this year.
And I just wanted to add that in some cases what we're finding is that, like, say, our Tier 3 system is really tight. Our kids that have referrals, our kids that have behavior in their IEP goals, they're getting the services they need.
Right.
And even in some cases our intervention looks good. It's the Tier 1 that can always use better beefing up and better support, better consistency, better common vocabulary. So, and we're seeing that in academic side as well for MTSS. So the more we can develop Tier 1, the fewer kids will need Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Right.
So that's really the goal. And I see it as an ongoing process, but this has kind of really forced us to focus on it and come together. So it's been good.
I do agree with the building the system and then tweaking the system to make it effective and efficient is really big. Yeah. I would say on the academic side, when you do testing and you do test results, I would like to see growth, not just overall percentages in the spring. And especially if you can look, I don't know how many iReady comparisons you can make to other districts, but like seeing what other districts are doing in the same way that we do with some of the other stuff, if that's possible, because I think the floor in this district is high. There's a lot of educated parents in this district, which means a lot of educated kids. The question then is, how much are we pushing those kids? And that's a growth stat, not an overall stat. So that would be my preference.
Yeah, and the new state data studio is available, and it does report on growth finally, which is wonderful. So I'm excited to show you that.
And it just so happens that at the next board meeting, Mrs. Thomaselli is on the docket for a data presentation. That works out well.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And if I could just highlight just a couple more items. I know it's getting late, but these are important. Carl mentioned the Setting Town meeting. So we've had the opportunity as a leadership team to get together to begin working on a Hampstead School District AI framework for the district. So last June, the New Hampshire Learning Initiative put out a pre-K through grade 12 AI framework for the state of New Hampshire. We had been asking, the superintendents have been asking the state for some guidance and a framework for a few years now. They put out this document. It is 50 pages and will make your head spin. So the work that our team is engaged in is taking the 50-page framework and then sort of overlaying like our values, our priorities, our district goals, where we are as a district, and creating, taking the 50-page document and putting it into a 10-page document. And I want to thank Nicole and Joe for their leadership on this. It's a really, really exciting work. The document is coming along nicely. We did mention at the meeting that we held yesterday that we want to bring we have a very solid draft, and at a future meeting we want to bring it forward to the board for your feedback. It's exciting because I can really kind of wrap my head around how AI, how the district can embrace AI in like a systematic way. And so this document, first it starts by defining what artificial intelligence is, which it seems to be a no-brainer, but you know, we had a great conversation about generative AI. And then also really there's 3 areas, right? We want to talk about AI with instruction. You know, how are our teachers using AI to design lesson plans, to design assessments, to inform their instruction and their practice? Then we also want to talk about AI in terms of learning, right? How are our students using it? How are they using it appropriately, ethically, to be able to be, to continue to sustain critical thinking and imagination? Because we definitely want to make sure that those 2 skills are front and center. And then the third one, which I think we're doing a pretty good job of, how do we use it to increase operational efficiency? Just sitting with my colleagues, I learn new things every day, moving beyond ChatGPT, about how we can use AI to make our lives easier and better, everything for assisting with communications, writing job descriptions, writing MTSS plans, communication protocols. And so really it's those 3 buckets that we want to, that framework will center around those 3 areas. And we'll look at professional learning for our staff, explicit teaching around AI with our students, and then doing some training with our leadership team on how to improve operational efficiency. So I would say a timeline for getting something in front of the board is probably December or January, and then we would have a framework in place by, I would say, like early spring.
All right, board members, any other questions or discussion for Bob? Okay, at this point we will adjourn the meeting at 8:57 p.m. Thank you all.